I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to a very special episode of San Bernardino Zoo. Today I'm going to show you how I run this massive zoo. Staff, work zones, animals, habitat design, and most importantly, making sure you don't go bankrupt. We're also going to see something that you guys request in the comments all the time, the entire zoo from above. We're going to start, appropriately enough, at the entrance. This is one of the most important parts of the zoo to make sure that the rest of the zoo runs smoothly. This is the entrance to San Bernardino Zoo, and it is really important to get the entrance right. There is a lot of money to be made here. If you get the entrance right, then the zoo should flow pretty nicely from then on. The first order of business here is amenities. You want food, drink, shops, etc. for the guests to spend their money, because as soon as they arrive at the zoo, they will already have various needs for food, drink, shops that will need filling straight away. You can see it's already pretty busy here. I like to use the shop counters for entrances because you can fit a lot of them into a small space. So we've got this pretty simple custom counter that we've built, and then underneath that we've got food, drink, gift shop, and information center all lined up, and these are going to be bringing money into the zoo straight away. It doesn't look that busy here because I've got the guest limited to keep the frame rate up, but this is normally absolutely packed in the zoo. Now, as your zoo grows, always check the guests' feelings on the ticket prices. So you just select the guest before they come in, and then they will tell you what they think, and you want them to think it is fair. If they're any happier than that, it means they'd be happy to spend more. If they're happy, put the prices up. At the other end of the entrance, we have Iguana Falls, and exhibits like this are so important for making money early on in your zoo. And we'll go into the importance of exhibits a bit more later, but right now I want to show you this guy here. Despite being the first keeper we ever hired in this zoo, if we look at his stats, we can see he is only trained up to 3 stars. And the reason for that is that Iguana Falls is so far away from anywhere else in the zoo that this is all he has to manage. So there's no need for us to have him fully trained, because all he's got to look after is 4 iguana exhibits all right next to each other. So we'll leave him at 3 out of 5 stars in terms of training. He doesn't need any more than that to get his job done, and you can do that with any member of staff who isn't working at full capacity. And if we take a look at his statistics, you can see here he's spending 30% of his time just chilling basically, so no need to train him or pay him any more than we do. Let's move on to Amazonia and take a look at one of the most important aspects for managing your staff: work zones. So this here is the work zone setup for Amazonia. We've got a work zone for the caimans and the otters, which is these habitats around here, which just has 1 keeper assigned to it, so they can manage all of those. Then we have capybara and capuchins here. That's just 1 habitat, again just 1 keeper. Then we've got cleaning, which encompasses the whole area with just 1 caretaker. Then jaguar and insects, which is the jaguar dome and Amazonian giants, again just 1 keeper there. And finally maintenance, which is where our mechanic takes care of all the habitats. I think there's another cleaner in there as well, all set up to have as few staff as possible to keep costs down, which is so important in franchise mode. But it's not just getting the right amount of staff, it's also laying things out and attributing staff to the right places to ensure that you need as few as possible. And the best way to ensure that you need as few as possible is to think about your keeper gate placement. So these 3 habitats here have just 1 keeper managing all of them, and the way that we can do that is that we've got 1 keeper gate on this side, we've got 1 keeper gate in here on the same side again, and then the otter habitat here, we've got another keeper gate there, because they're all arranged in such a way. In this staff building here, the keeper can easily get from this building out to each of these habitats, and we can get away with just using 1 keeper for 3 habitats, which is really, really useful and saves loads of money. Now, it's not just about saving money, it's about making money as well. One of the absolute keys to that, especially in the early days of the zoo, is exhibits. So always get some exhibits in early doors in your zoo to make sure you can get guests in. They're cheap to run, and you can breed them and then sell the offspring to get some much needed cash at the start of your zoo as well. Since Frontier added the management option as well, exhibits are a lot more pleasurable to use. You can get them to exactly the way you want them in terms of how many animals you've got, and then just get the game to manage it on your behalf from then on. Plus, it's just a lot of fun building exhibits and trying to make the 4x4 boxes look more interesting than they do by default. One of our favourite things to do on this channel. On to the Palm Cafe. So restaurants, food, drink, shops, toilets, all of those amenities are absolutely vital to getting your zoo running properly. So let's take a look at how they are set up in San Bernardino Zoo. The Palm Cafe is our first restaurant, and where it's situated is really important. So it's fairly close to the entrance, but it's also where the water terraces, Africa, and the petting paddock all join, and this means it gets a lot of traffic and it makes a lot of money. The Treetop Cafe here is a great example of where not to put a restaurant. It's positioned at the end of the island islands means it's about as far away from the entrance as it's possible to get in this zoo, and that means it gets very few visitors and does not make a lot of money. We of course built it here because we wanted it to have the view over the treetop trail, but if you are looking for efficiency and lots of money, make sure your restaurants are within a reasonable distance of one of the entrances to the zoo. Even more important than restaurants in franchise mode is making sure you have food, drink stands and gift shops pretty much all the way throughout your zoo. So you can use the food trucks, they're a really good way of getting them in there without having to do a lot of building. You can make generic shops like this one. There's quite a few of these around the zoo now. I just changed the names and the signage to match whichever area it's in. It's got a nice wooden metal kind of generic look, so it fits just as well into the African area as it does at Sea Lion Shores. On to Africa. This is the largest area in the zoo and is where pretty much all of the most expensive animals to feed live. So we're going to take a look at food costs, animal talks, and how to spread your guests around your zoo so it's all nice and full. These gorillas are really expensive to feed. So if we look at the zoo's expenses here, which are pretty eye-watering, our biggest costs are staff wages, which is why we're so careful with the keepers. And our second biggest cost is animal food, $139,000 last year. Now, one of the ways that you can combat that is to look at your most expensive animals. So if we go to the animals menu and then food and then sort it by cost, you can see that the elephants, lions and gorillas are the most expensive animals to feed in the zoo. So the way that we can deal with that is to put the gorillas on grade 1 food quality. That will save us about $1,500 per feed, which is a lot of money, and you can see that only affects their happiness slightly. They're still pretty happy. We can do the exact same thing over on the other side of Africa with the elephants and also the lions, and if you put your most expensive animals down to grade 1 food quality, that can save you a hell of a lot of money. Animal talks are a great way to educate your guests, and the more educated they are, the more money they spend, so always worthwhile putting them in. I've got 2 here, one in the savannah and one at the giraffes. Set the talks 6 months apart, and that means the educator can do both of them and take a rest when needed without missing any of them. If you're really careful, you can have 3 animal talk points as long as they're close together, and set the talks to be 4 months apart, and that'll work nicely as well. The last thing we're going to look at in Africa is how to ensure your guests spread out across the whole zoo, which is pretty difficult when the zoo's as big as this. So the way to do it is to have more than one entrance. So in our zoo's exits, which is directly opposite the entrance right on the other side of the map, there's another guest spawner in here. I've hidden the actual pad behind a wall so that you don't see loads of people just appearing, and that means that even this far from the zoo's main entrance, you can still see guests walking around in the African area. Onto the Indian forest to learn about guest flow, which is making sure that your guests can get around the zoo with as few dead ends as possible and without having to retrace their steps through areas they've already been. It's a much more pleasant experience in real life, and in Planet Zoo it enables them to get to all the places they're going to spend money much quicker. This is where the Indian forest meets Amazonia. You can see our giant otter habitat here. So I'll show you how I've set the pathing up in this part of the zoo. When guests arrive at this point here, they can go down this path into Amazonia. They can go up this path here into the Indian forest. They can go down this main path back towards the Palm Café and the Desert House. And once they've been through the Indian forest, this links them up directly to Madagascar, and they can come back through the Fossa forest and then into the Lima walkthrough and back out towards the Desert House again. And you've also got this path going to Amazonia by a different direction. So loads of different choices for the guests and nowhere that they're going to get stuck. The only dead end is at this end of the Indian forest because we haven't built anything else there yet, but we will be soon. Into Australia now for one of the most important things, I think, in making your zoo feel like your own, and that is custom signage. We've got 2 types of signs here, the big banners for the outback and then the animal information boards for the kangaroo and the emu. Now, I won't lie, the banners were not easy to make. They are 3 square billboards positioned on top of each other with a screenshot and some text, very carefully photoshopped so that it spreads over those 3 billboards and looks like a banner. But I want to talk about the habitat boards. These are so easy to make, but they make such a difference to your zoo. I've actually got a tutorial on exactly how to make these using free software. I'll link that at the end of the video. But essentially, it's just the billboards that get installed separately in a folder on your PC. And then I just replace the bit at the bottom with some text in English and Latin rather than Blanco and Latin. and then put the zoo's logo on there, but it makes such a difference. And if you want to go all out, you can always download some of the fonts on the workshop from some of the amazing people who have made them and create something more solid and three-dimensional, like this Crocodile Creek sign. This is one of my favorite signs in the zoo. I originally made this for the Outback episode of Planet Wild, but I liked it so much I reused it and just changed the lettering on it. We'll head to the islands now to discuss something that we should probably do more often on the channel, to be honest, but we've done it a couple of times, which is building things for the background of your zoo to set the scene. This, as you've probably noticed, is a car park. It serves absolutely no purpose in Planet Zoo, we don't need them, but it makes the zoo look so much better from aerial shots when there's somewhere for people to park their cars. I've just got this one from the workshop. This is one of the classic car parks in the workshop. It's really old. There's probably more detailed ones available now, but I've used it in every zoo I've ever built, and it always does the job for me, and I'll probably use it again. And something much more visible when you're actually in the zoo is the greenhouse at the back of the proboscis monkeys habitat. Again, this serves absolutely no purpose, but because they need very specialized food to eat, I thought it would be cool for the zoo to grow its own food for them and have a greenhouse. And just having something in the background that the guests can't access, they'll never get any closer to it than this. When you're walking around the zoo, just adds another layer to it, which I really like. I'm going to try and put some more stuff like this in, I think. Sea Lion Shores is the latest habitat at San Bernardino Zoo, and I want to go more into research and habitat design than we ever have done before on this channel, and show you some behind the scenes stuff. Welcome to my desktop. This is a collection of photos and screen grabs that I've got of the Galapagos Islands habitat at Houston Zoo, which is the inspiration for Sea Lion Shores. It's pretty much a direct replica of that, and I use a program called PureRef. It's a free program you can download, which just enables you to set up mood boards like this really easily. I'll put a link to it in the description. You can place the photos in, move them around, resize them. They don't lose quality when they are shrunk and then made large again, so you can just get everything exactly where you want it. You can see how I've got it laid out here, so I've got a pretty good panoramic view of the entire habitat. What we're going to do is piece them together like a puzzle so we can get the layout of the habitat in our minds and make sure that we are going to be building it correctly. You can also use Google Earth and Google Maps to do this if there are good quality aerial photos of the zoo. I've sourced these photos mainly from ZooChat, which is a great website for researching zoo habitats and all aspects of zoos. And I got some screen grabs from a zoo tour as well. So thanks to the Most Epic Adventures with Rob Zip. And once we get these into the right position, we're going to have a really good feel for what the habitat looks like, all the different elements that go into the design, and then we can work out how to get this into San Bernardino and what changes to it we're going to make to get it to fit into our zoo. There we go, that fits together nicely. Time to get drawing. Now, I'm using drawing in the loosest possible sense of the word because I cannot draw, but you don't need to be able to draw well to be able to design habitats. The important thing is to make sure you know where everything is going to go and make sure that everything makes sense. So what I'm doing here is drawing a top-down view of the habitat that we're going to be designing. And if you get things right at this stage, this prevents you from starting building and then continually making mistakes. If you make a mistake when you're doing a drawing like this and suddenly realize that you've got nowhere to put a keeper gate, or you need way more room for a second barrier or something like that, you can just rub it out and start again. If you realize that when you've just spent 3 hours building a custom fence in the game, then it is going to be a massive nightmare to change it and get it working properly. So we're starting to get the different elements in here. We've got the viewing cave for the guests at the top, we've got the water, we've got an island and some more land area for the sea lions, we've got the seating at the bottom. Now we're going to work out the guest flow and how we're going to get paths in here. If you remember in the Sea Lion Shores episode, this habitat joins Africa onto the Night House, and we'll also join it onto the Frozen North, and more on that later. So we need to make sure that we can get into this habitat from 3 different directions. We've also planned a little exhibit so that we can get the diamondback terrapin in, and at this stage I'm planning an underwater tunnel as well, which is what the original habitat at Houston Zoo has. That ended up getting removed because they still look so janky in Planet Zoo, unfortunately, but I was able to adjust it so that we have an underwater viewing dome instead. Even the best laid plans will need changing sometimes. That's the artistic stuff done. And here is the finished habitat, pretty much exactly what we drew, minus the underwater tunnel, and made much easier by drawing it out beforehand. That is everything in the current zoo, but this is where we're going to be next week. We are finally going to be starting the Frozen North, the final huge area to go into San Bernardino. So very excited to show you the progress on that. Now, I said at the beginning of the video I would show you an overview of the whole zoo, and here it is. I get asked to show this in the comments all the time, so I thought it was about time that I actually did. So this is the whole zoo. From the entrance at the front to Africa at the back, And from Amazonia on the far left, all the way over to the islands on the right, this is everything we've built. You can see the areas that we've got left to fill in. The frozen north will be in between the car park at the top and Sea Lion Shores. The space between the Indian forest and Africa will be filled in with another Asian themed build that I'm very excited about. And there's a little bit of land in between the forest at night and the petting paddock that I have reserved for the next DLC. Let's take a look at the Explorers Club monolith. Thank you so much to all of you who have joined. Hit the join button on the channel if you want to see your name up here. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again next week for some more Planet Zoo. Thanks for watching.